when you start to work with someone in this realm with gene keys, like what are some of the first steps? What can people expect in the process itself?
So many words, but if I was going to say one thing, it would be to understand the greatest realization of you. And when I
Mm.
say you, I mean all parts of you. I mean why you're here. I mean what you're supposed to be doing in work, because the gene keys goes through your life's work into your purpose, and that's combined with what keeps you healthy and what you're here to learn, right? So there's 11 different gene keys within your hologenetic profile, we call it. So it's kind of like a profile. You can go to genekeys.com and download your free profile, and it'll show you right away what your life's work is, your purpose is, what you're here to learn, and what keeps you healthy. But once you move through that, then we get into relationships, right? Which are the most vital part of all life. And so we go from, the purpose, your purpose, which goes directly into your attraction, which is what you're here to learn emotionally, right? What magnetizes you, what makes you magnetic. And that's probably one of the biggest parts for me that I've learned is the emotional side, right? Of how I've lived my life. And, when we look at it, the emotional incarnation in your body is really, or how you see the world, I should say, is really from 7 to 14.
Hmm.
Right. So a lot of times when I'm working with clients, a lot of the answers that come to dealing with those emotional traumas or those situations, or why they're doing certain things currently today, goes back to that time period, 7 to 14. So it's really fascinating to see that. But then it goes into your IQ and your EQ, which is what makes up your intelligence, right? How can you be more intelligent? And then it goes into your work. It goes into the pearl, which is all about what makes you prosperous. And prosperous has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with allowing you to live your greatest purpose, right? And so it shows you what you should be doing for your vocation, what type of work, what type of person are you in the work that you're doing. And so it really encompasses I'd say it's the all encompassing kind of formula as to why you're here. And you get to see in each one of those aspects where you really struggle. And we sit in those emotions. We figure out, why are you dealing with them? During our course right now, Venus Illumination, we're doing something called psychic somatics, which is just getting into the body. Somatics is of the body. So we're getting into the body and we're allowing people to work through those emotions on their own. And so I've never seen some of the things that I've seen. This is the first time Gene Keys has ever been combined with something like this. And I'm seeing profound shifts like I've never seen before in my life. And this is literally the first time we did it. So, in a year or two, I can't imagine the type of effects that this type of work is going to be having on people, because it's truly better than anything that I've ever gone through. And I've gone through, so many great things in my life, but it just gets you to the core of exactly what you need right now.
Yeah. No, it sounds absolutely fascinating, and it really echoes a lot of what I truly believe is that idea of healing, that it starts more on this very high level plane,
Yeah.
spiritual, energetic, mental, all of these things you could say. Whereas most of us start at that lower vibrating field of the physical
Mm.
and try and work up from there,
Yeah.
which is like an upstream battle a lot of times, right?
It is. It
And
totally is.
you have to realize we are not physical beings living, a kind of spiritual, but we are spiritual beings in a physical reality of it, in these vessels of our bodies,
Yeah.
and enjoying the ride in the universe. Are you using this work within Lockett Performance Training? Is this all like a holistic viewpoint? Like, talk a little bit about that Lockett Performance Training and what goes on there.
Yeah. So Lockett Performance Training is the youth academy that I created for high school football
Mm.
players. And so, we've probably got about 40 kids through there, because we work with them independently and collectively. But it's a very robust training period that allows them to, essentially, when I left football, I kept getting called back to coaching and I kept running from it. I was like, I don't want to coach. I don't want to, my brother's a coach at Oregon. And I'm like, that's not my path. And eventually I was like, you know what? I keep calling back. I'm supposed to be working with young men. So let me create a NFL caliber type program for young men in high school, from the recruiting to the film analysis to actual training to nutrition, the whole nine, and then also mindset. And so the performance coaching, we don't necessarily get into Gene Keys, because these guys are, high school. They're thinking about ladies and everything else, so
Yeah.
Gene Keys is a bit over their head right now. But it's so interesting when you hear a 15-year-old talk to you like he's 22.
Hmm.
right? Because these kids are extremely intelligent. They may not have lived as much of life that we've lived, but the intelligence that these kids have these days is truly profound. But it's also interesting, and I'm an analyzer, if you can't tell. I'm always looking for patterns and things that stick out. And it's so interesting because I have a lot of private school kids, but I also have public school kids. And the emotional intellect from the private school kids is almost twofold of what I see on the public side. Mm. And so, the next thing, I'm sure this will happen down the line at some point. The next thing I really want to impact is education. Mm-hmm. Because the ability to be able to process and learn and understand information. I see how people struggle in testing. All my private school kids, 3.9s, 4.0s, and their testings are off the chart. Their ACT scores, their SAT scores are off the chart. When I look at, some of these public school kids, they're nowhere even close. And so the comparison as well as the gap is extremely wide for kids going through the same systems, pretty much. Right. So there's a huge transition that needs to happen in education. And I think we're slowly but surely coming out of that and being pulled together. But, Lockett Performance is really all about helping these kids get to a level of football that they probably would never, ever get to without the help of myself and my staff. So, we love what we do, and we make it fun. We make it exciting. And, we just keep guys motivated to keep playing football at a high level.
I love it. And it's always funny that way. The universe is always kind of laughing at us. It's like the things we run away from, we probably have to do the most. It was probably somewhere in you that you knew you had to go back to coaching football and all that and pay it forward and everything.